All right, everybody, welcome back to the OCA Youth Podcasting. My name is Max. I'm a rising junior, and my favorite sport to watch is football.
Yeah, hi guys, it's me again. I'm Ryan. I'm a rising junior, and again, my favorite sport to watch is definitely American football.
Hi guys, my name is Ian, and I'm a rising junior, and my favorite sport to watch is soccer.
Hi, my name's Sid, and I'm a rising junior as well, and my favorite sport to watch is soccer.
All right, word. So today we're going to be talking about mental health in the Asian American community, sort of how mental health is perceived and viewed. And sort of going with that topic, we're also going to cover the same situation with neurodivergence as well. So just what are some of y'all's experiences with mental health in the Asian American community? I mean, I know just before we start on that the common model minority myth of Asian stereotyping is that Asians, particularly the youth, are sort of conditioned to not have like mental health problems in a sense. Like mental health is not really discussed. It's not really accepted as like this actual thing. But just some thoughts on that from now.
Yeah, I mean, again, when we first talked about like what we talked about in our first podcast about mono-minority, we are there's this stereotype going around that basically like Asian Americans are the minority. They're like superior. They work hard to get the best grades, like make a lot of money. And the stereotype going around about mental health, especially in the Asian American community, or how people perceive mental health in the Asian American community, is that we hide, our feelings and hide what we truly, or we hide, what we try to talk about. I can tell you that that's not the case. We're all different people, and we all have different experiences, and we all do have our different struggles. I can speak for all of us when we say that I can agree that Asian Americans definitely strive for excellence, and we always pursue our passions. But there's not any moment in time where we ever try to mask our emotions. And honestly, I don't know where that stereotype really came from. I guess it's because we're being hard workers, and we're always striving for excellence. But I definitely think that mental health is a big part of mastering my self identity. It kind of defines who I am. So.
I mean, I think a big part of where it comes from also does come from that idea of the model minority,
Yeah.
of that idea that there's an expectation somewhat for you to be doing better, for you to be doing good, and part of that plays into your mental health and how you yourself feel about what happens.
Adding on to what Sid and Ryan said, I think that mental health in the Asian community is almost seen as like a weakness, and it's something that they don't talk about much because we're meant to be this like set expectation. We're meant to have all these like goals that we're meant to meet, and we're like these perfect people. But at the end of the day, we're all humans, and we have our flaws, and mental health is a really big issue.
I definitely agree with that, and I think I guess one particular experience I had with dealing with mental health and speaking about mental health in a uniquely Asian American space is that I guess during the fourth grade was sort of a time when I began to like be aware of Asian stereotyping and model minority, like sort of the idea that there's a certain like amount of expectations put on us to we have to do well in school, and we have to not really have negative emotions show so much, and we have to act this way, and we have to eat these kinds of foods, so on and so forth. But I think particularly in the fourth grade, I did have quite a few mental health issues. Eventually, actually, my family took me to so I think it was like a hospital. It was some evaluation center, but I was basically diagnosed with anxiety after like sitting in front of a computer. I had to do a bunch of questions and whatnot this lady was asking me, and that was the result. But working up before then, I found that the biggest sort of reason that I didn't go and I didn't talk about it was not because of my parents or my family. They actually urged like, if you have bad feelings, if you think that the people around you are gonna like pass away sooner, this and that. If you have all these kinds of worries, you can talk about it. You can talk about it with us, or you can go to medical professional and have that spoken with and have that dealt with. But I think just sort of on my own, I had internalized like that stereotype, and the fact that for some reason it wasn't okay for me to talk about my mental health because a lot of my friends at the time and still now are Asian American. I didn't hear them talk about it. This is not at a point in school when it was made, I guess, more like it was not in the curriculum, or I guess in the teachers talking that, you know, they supported mental health and all that mental health awareness. So I guess I do think it is good to discuss it at an early age, and to also, you know, not be constrained by stereotyping.
Yeah, I mean, I experienced this monominority stereotype like even when I was in first grade, when I literally or it was in my second year of school. I noticed, or my teachers and the aides noticed that throughout the school year I was struggling in class. Like I just couldn't learn, or I just couldn't, you know, keep up with the, like simple instructions, or you know, couldn't. Or I had trouble with my speech actually when I was a lot younger in the first grade. And what my mom and my parents decided to do was they had to send me to speech therapy. Um, and it wasn't like I never actually felt embarrassed for the first time, but I did when I was in second grade, and I had to talk about speech therapy to my friends, and just like, you know, how it is, because I know the majority of my classmates never went to speech therapy. It was only me and 3 other kids compared to like the 100 in my elementary school. And I just remember feeling that huge. This is the first time I've ever, you know, felt embarrassment, but it was also the first time, you know, I realized that, you know, like I feel just like my mental health was deteriorating, especially at a younger age. And I feel that now in this day and age, we should have a lot more awareness. We do, but we should have more awareness, especially when it comes to, you know, the Asian American community, to, you know, not hide or mask their feelings, or, you know, keep them in the shadows. So you definitely need to bring that out and bring those discussions out in the conversations about mental health.
You know, since, I mean, I think for all Asians we have like very high standards, and then in 7th grade, you know, we all wanted to achieve like really good grades, and I really struggled with my mental health because my grades were like really bad, and I didn't seek help. So it's like, it's a really good idea that we should all like, we should all, like seek help for our problems, because it's a really big issue.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's very much also dependent on the environment you're around, because it doesn't only depend on obviously our identity as Asian Americans, but also other parts of our identity that also play into this idea. And it's important to also recognize that it's different for different people within the community. And I feel like, especially going back to that idea that it's kind of a stereotype that Asian Americans don't talk about their mental health and don't really acknowledge mental health issues, is very much just a stereotype, because it's very varied within how different families, different communities talk about and treat mental health.
Definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I also just wanted to speak out, you know, your experiences on mental health, especially like for you guys when you were in middle school, because I know that, okay, I'm gonna stop bringing this topic up, but it was the time in 6th grade where I didn't, you know, get into honors math like all my other friends did, and in 7th grade I was in the regular math class, and I just wanted to, I shared that experience before, you know, when I felt, you know, kind of, I wouldn't say depressed, but I'd say helpless, because, you know, I'm not in the smart math class, but I couldn't really speak out about it because it was embarrassing at the time. And I just wanted to know you guys' experiences on, you know, it's like too embarrassing to speak out because you're afraid of, you know, other people's reactions, and especially like speaking out in mental health. Like, would you guys share your experiences on that? You know?
I mean, I definitely think that, I guess going back to the mental health problems I had in 4th grade, and dealing with anxiety, was that I think having my sort of original thought process that, you know, this was something that was like bad, it should be hidden because people didn't openly talk about this at that point, combined with that, you know, stereotype, stigma. But I think that because sort of my family affirmed like my worries and my like problems I had with mental health, and especially because when I did speak to my close friends, like they didn't have a problem with it, like I felt like from that point on I felt more confident being open about my mental health and sort of what space I'm in at that time. I think, you know, having people around you sort of support like your worries and your troubles is definitely a major benefit or help.
I mean, in 7th grade, when we were all in 7th grade, I know the pandemic was like a very current issue, and that like really ruined my mental health, like with my schooling, my grades, and I didn't reach out, and it was really bad on myself because it just hurt me even more. And but eventually, I talked it out with people that are close to me, my teachers, my friends, and my parents and my family. And then, once you're in a comfortable position to express like how you truly feel, like they can really help you, and it's really beneficial for you.
I mean, also going back to the pandemic, I kind of took it as an opportunity to just sit and not talk to anyone, which obviously does have an adverse effect on my mental health. But at the same time, I feel like I was a little too young to really recognize that, and that's kind of what I wanted to do. So I just kind of sat at home for months on end doing nothing.
Yeah, especially during the pandemic, especially with this embarrassing effect on me because I didn't get into honors math at the time. The pandemic really did not help with encouraging me to speak out or even leave the room at sometimes. But I think something that really helped me was there was one other friend who kind of had the same experience as me at the time, where he didn't also pass a test or get an honors math. And I feel that something we all should recognize and also spread awareness to is the fact that other people could be going through the same problems as you. Like, you're not alone in this situation. Like for you two and me and probably everyone else here, like the pandemic definitely didn't help in terms of you're literally quarantining people physically and also mentally because they're not able to share experiences or talk with friends or even communicate or like interact with them. And I feel that after, I think it was shortly after, like some of the quarantines got lifted, me and my friend, we shared experiences in terms of how he felt after the test for getting into honors math. And I feel that for mental health and knowing who you are, I think your friends and your community is something so important to you, especially for me during that 7th grade time span.
I think definitely one thing to point out, though, I understand how important your academics and exceeding and sort of being the best version of yourself can be. But I think also like one major idea you want to, I guess, like improve or to better sort out your mental health, it's like not necessarily base your values or what you find out value in based off of what you can't control, right? I guess in that sense, like being improving upon yourself and trying to do better, something that you yourself can control can be a good way of preserving good mental health and sort of moving forward with that. But if your sort of value and your appreciation of yourself is only based on how others react or what can't be controlled, I think that's a very common formula for poor mental health that I've worked to adjust on over the past few years.
Yeah.
I feel like it's also much easier said than done to actually implement that in your own life.
For sure.
Because once you move on from grades and thinking that your grades and how other people do actually affects how you feel about yourself, then sometimes it can shift to something else. Sometimes, like for me, when I was in soccer last year, or 2 years back in our freshman year, that kind of also affected me because the coach never played me, and it moved from I didn't care that much about my grades anymore. Now I cared about this, and that affected me. And then it kind of morphs and takes on something else that still affects how I feel about myself, depending on my performance or things that I can't even control.
Sure.
Yeah, I had a similar experience to Sid about soccer in 9th grade because I genuinely did not play at all, and my grades took a really heavy toll. But I think we should all live in the present because what Max said, we should live in a life where we shouldn't take into consideration the things we can't control, because at the end of the day it's just more things you have to worry about, and that's not really beneficial for your mental health.
Yeah, I mean, I had a similar experience to Sid's soccer experience. This was back, again, this was in 5th grade, when I was playing baseball. And, at the time, if you're playing in Little League, that 5th grade is, when people start to get really competitive and they don't give, a lot of kids the chance to play sometimes, or they would just bench them out the entire game because of their poor performance. And me being not the greatest hitter at all, I literally couldn't hit a baseball coming at me 15 miles per hour at the time. It was a bad experience for me because the coaches, decided to bench me just based on my hitting performance and not how good I was, behind the mound when I was playing catcher or maybe fielding, which I was actually good at the time. I think there's a lot of things that you can't control in life, and I especially think that something so minuscule as your coaches benching you just because you can't hit, or not understanding or not recognizing that you can field. That really affected me at such a young age. But I realized also that a lesson I learned, I'm sure it's similar with all of you, is that some things you can't control. It shouldn't be able to affect your identity. It's just the things that'll help you make yourself better or make yourself feel better, or looking towards the future. You said like live in the present, right? Live in the present, meaning that we should focus on ourselves and not like look back into the past, but always look towards the future, and always trying to find ways to improve myself. And especially after I started, it's kind of embarrassing to say, but getting benched for like half the game just because I couldn't hit. I got my hitting up. Okay, I was batting third. In baseball, that's like the best position you can hit. Okay, but yeah, that really gave me a little lesson on how to master helping yourself, and and helping your self-confidence.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I think it's also important, that kind of self-reflection part of that whole story, because there are things you can't control, but there are also things you can control.
Yeah, of
and
course.
it's only natural to be upset about results, upset about what's happening, but I think it's in some ways healthy to just let it out and express that, but then at some point figure out what you can do yourself, figure out what you want to do and what will make you actually start enjoying what you're doing.
I agree. I mean, I like the point you made about like letting your frustrations out, like sort of accepting the idea that like something happened poorly or something went badly. I guess for me, going into quarantine, I guess during that 6th grade time frame, like prior to that, of course, most of my time was spent in school, and then after, some school club, after school gym or chess, or whatever I did, I forgot. But like most of my time spent was like outside at school with my friends, and sort of coming back home and just sort of like being by myself and like reading a book or like playing video games. That was a nice time, right? Because that was like a break from what I had around me. And at that time, like I considered staying in my room and playing like video games, reading books to be like happy time. This is good, and then the rest of the day is bad. That was how I divided at the time. Just because well, now you understand that you need both, but like when you have a lot of something and a little of something, you tend to value a little of something if you enjoy it. But going into quarantine, you have the option to sit at home as much as you want, and just like not go outside. And I think a really bad practice that like sort of manifests in my own life was like, I want everything to be good all the time, so I'm just gonna stay in my room for like 24 hours a day, and that's not healthy, and that's not something you should try and do. So I think a little bit of like, I guess, quote unquote bad things like should happen in keeping something balanced and keeping the other parts of your life cool and refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, when you say like bad things, I think at the time, like I had the same experience as you. I chose the option, stay at home and do virtual learning, which was like probably the most harmful thing that could happen to me at the time. And when you say bad things, like you can also take that as a way of saying that, back in the day, I thought it was bad because I wanted to value this good, like the good, quote unquote, good things more, so much more that you'll just eliminate the bad things. But really, the bad things were like the best things. Okay, you can just eliminate the word bad and put best into it, because the interactions I had with my friends, especially during 8th grade or the grade after, when everyone started coming back to school, was when I found out that it was the most beneficial thing that could happen to me, right? As we talked about earlier, our mental health experiences can't be shared if we're physically and also mentally, closed off from our companions. And, going into 8th grade, I didn't really value human socialization as much as I did, in 6th grade, or when it was like, valued at the time. And when I came into 8th grade, I found out that bad thing, or the thing I was hiding from, or something I wasn't comfortable of because of a year of virtual learning, that was the best thing that could happen. Because first of all, I made like twice as many friends, 3 times as many friends, and also about the mental health issues I talked about, or my experiences, locked in a room every single day during 7th grade. Like sharing that out was just, man, it was just beneficial, and it was great for me. And I think that also, preserved my self-identity in being that, yes, you felt helpless, during quarantine, but I'm sure literally everyone else around you did as well. But we couldn't share those experiences at the time. And I think that eighth grade was, just because of that, was just a huge moment for me where I learned that, other people share the same experiences that you have, and it also preserves your self identity and, who you are. I think that was very good for me, yeah.
I mean, I think there was also a negative part to that adjustment coming out of COVID, and
Well, of
one thing
course,
I can
yeah.
think of is the first time I met you,
Right, yeah.
which was interesting because I yelled at you a lot because you weren't wearing masks.
Yeah, because me and Sid had a very interesting relationship before 8th grade, so there was a lot of conflict. So yeah.
But that whole idea of how I sat during COVID, didn't interact with people, played into how I interacted with people coming out of COVID. And there was also that fear of COVID's gonna come and get you. And that kind of played into how I interacted with other people, and it made my interactions with other people more negative and continued to kind of keep me closed off from people until I finally decided that it'd been too long since I'd actually went and interacted with someone that I hadn't known for years.
Yeah, I mean, about the interacting part, I 100% agree that there was a negative thing. But I've been sitting on Google Meet and Zoom and doing things all the time where I'll admit, like, the entire class time I was watching YouTube because there was no one there to watch me, right? And there was no one there, tell me or keep me in check on, what I was doing. But that also plays into the part about, how sheltering yourself or hiding your feelings is probably the most detrimental thing that could happen to your mental health. If someone's not there to help you or guide you out of your darkest moments, like that, like it keeps you in a death spiral, and especially if you mask them for more and more, it just gets worse. And I know that because, again, the helpless feeling I had when I was in 7th grade, and like that really deteriorated my mental health. But I just know that, I mean, first of all, I just want to point out that I did not talk to my parents about this. Like, I was in my room, I like barely came downstairs for like half of the school year. So I wanted to, point out that I didn't really talk to my parents about, how I felt at the time or how I felt about virtual learning. When they asked me about virtual learning, hey, like, what are you learning? And I'm like, yeah, I did great. I answered a lot of questions. I wasn't doing anything. So, hiding, what you truly feel is, especially during that quarantine time for me, was just, it was very harmful. But, now getting into that 8th grade time, you're getting actual physical human interaction into your system and, sharing experiences, that, kind of helps you get those feelings out. And, when I told everyone that I hated virtual learning with I hated its guts or whatever I said at the time, and everyone else agreed with me because I can guarantee you no one liked virtual learning. Is that correct? Yeah, no one liked it? Okay, great. So, and then, just saying that.
Hindsight.
Yeah.
I liked it at the time.
Well, I did too, but it was, again,
Yeah.
it was bad for me on the long term, right?
Especially as soon as other people started coming in.
Oh yeah.
Then you really felt the isolation kicking in.
Yeah, but eventually, we all, grew more comfortable with actual human interaction with your classmates, and also sharing those experiences, that really got me to, that really helped my mental health. I'll just say that again. And, spreading awareness, especially for conversations and open discussions about your mental health and what you feel at your darkest moments is, again, it's good.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think we all have a lot of experiences to relate to coming out of like 2020 and 2021, but moving it more towards our school lives now. I think there's a very, somewhat common expression, just let me know if you agree with this or not, that, going into 10th grade or 11th grade or 12th grade in high school in the US, you're going to get a lot more work, you're going to get a lot more pressures, and you're going to have to sacrifice your mental health in order to, get through the hard part, right? So I was just wondering if y'all had any experiences to share, sort of, having gone through 10th grade at this point.
Yeah.
I think we're all juniors, but we're all juniors now, but just how do you think that expression has applied or been realized in your school life? Just day to day.
Yeah, I mean, look, 10th grade was brutal. Hard teachers, hard work, all that stuff, okay? And when people say to sacrifice their mental health, or when people think that Asian Americans, because we're the mono minority, sacrifice their mental health just to get the great, grades. Like, I can tell you that's just completely not the case. During 10th grade, like when the hardest moments arrived during, especially math class or science class, when the grades were potentially going to, fall off. I think that holding on to your mental health is the most important thing you could have done, because studying all you want is just, it's gonna get you somewhere. But when people say, Asian Americans get the best grades, I feel that, Asian Americans, preserve their mental health as well, because at the time when I preserved, how I felt, first of all, I felt pretty bad in terms of grades and all that, and how that, in the future we'll have more work in that. But I think staying strong and, keeping your composure, and especially understanding that, you can make a mistake at this one time, but you gotta focus on the future. You gotta focus on what's next, because that's ultimately what's more beneficial to you. Keeping that mindset is also, that's what really got me through 10th grade. And I think for other people too, like especially Asian Americans, that also will get us through the future years in school and maybe college as well.
I mean, 10th grade, I didn't take too many hard classes, but there was definitely a little bit of a shift from 9th to 10th grade in terms of like the material that we were getting. But yeah, 11th grade, we all know that's going to be really bad. We're all taking pretty rigorous classes, so, but I feel like 10th grade, I had a nice balance of, doing things that I liked and then staying really hard to education, because obviously it's very important to us, but finding a nice shift of things that you actually enjoy doing outside of school, so like, say for example, playing a sport or meeting with friends is just really beneficial for you, because it just lets you be free in some sense.
Okay, I'll go first. So, I sat next to Sid this year for all of my honors chemistry class, and he was able to slowly witness my deterioration from a normally speaking and functioning human being to I was like bickering and blabbering by the end of the year. I was yeah. So this year I quote unquote, at least at my school district, quote unquote, maxed out my classes. I just took the hardest stuff that they offered in every single subject. And I had the exact mentality that I just mentioned. I'll just tank my mental health this year, just get it done. You gotta get it through. High school's the hard part. 10th grade's the hard part, because I think that's how it is for a lot of people at our school.
Oh, okay.
10th grade. I hope, see, I say it because I hope 11th grade's not worse. I really do.
Yeah.
But I took a lot of hard classes for, the subject. I'm not really passionate about any of the subjects. I'm really not. And I think that last year the idea was that mental health is this resource meter that you can just sort of deplete, and it's just a year, and you just you sim through it like in Retro Bowl. You just sim through the year and just see your mental health meter drain, and by the end, as long as you replenish over the summer, you'll be fine.
Is a point, yeah.
But I think that mentality is really horrible for developing good conditions in life, because if you keep having that mentality where just phase by phase, 1 year or another year, I'll just completely sacrifice my mental health. It could be necessary for something that you're truly passionate for, but if you're really not, and it feels forced, there's really no reason to do it. And again, if you're successful in something, you become more successful, you just have more of that thing. It's not necessarily going to change. If I technically I am on paper successful this year, but if I had sort of gone with that same mindset and just took all the hard classes next year, I would not be in a good mental situation.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So learn balance.
Yeah, especially I totally think balance is the right answer here. I think especially for your mental health and also for your grades as well. First of all, taking the hardest classes and just failing in a bunch of them or getting D's is just not good for you, just in the long term, okay?
Ryan, I didn't fail.
No,
I
hey,
sacrificed too much to say I failed.
But let me get this clear. You want to have a good balance between, good and hard, enjoyable and hard classes to get, the best grades you possibly can. But also, that also helps you preserve your mental health in the long run. When you said the simulation in Retro Bowl, mental health is something you simulate.
It's a football game,
Exactly.
And there's an option where you can play it out and do the real thing, or you can just have it play it for you and see oh, these people got fatigue, these people passed. It's really bad
and
analogy.
one thing you should learn in Retro Bowl is you literally never simulate anything, especially the big games. You always lose. Okay.
I do it for fun sometimes.
No, you don't.
Yeah,
It's just I don't like losing in Retro Bowl. Let's get that clear, okay?
But it's a video game.
I know, but it's a video game. Okay, look, the real point here is that skimming through your problems and masking them, or just saying, oh, I'm just gonna get through this, is probably the worst thing that could happen to your grades and again your mental health, because just masking them and getting through them won't allow you to check in on yourself, and especially during a tough time in grades and also just workload in general. If you don't keep your self-confidence up and preserve your your identity and who you are and what passions you want to follow, just skimming through that will just get you won't fail your grades. You'll probably do well if you just study, but overall in the long term and who you are, you'll lose that too. And just again, simulations, it's a pretty silly metaphor for your mental health, but especially in the long term, if you just skim over your problems and not talk to anybody about it, trusted your family, your friends, and even your guidance counselor or whoever is offered for you to see, not talking, for example, my first guidance counselor talk was this year, the first time I've ever talked to anyone. It was the health guy, and look, he wasn't critiquing me on anything, and he wasn't just giving me all this stuff about preserve mental health and all that stuff, but he gave me some real helpful advice on looking out for myself, and also to keep keep your self identity and who you are. He gave me real good advice on that, and that meeting showed me that checking in on yourself, and especially going to trusted adults, and also your friends as well, and especially your parents. Let me just say that again, your parents, is just ultimately beneficial for you, not just for your grades, but also just for you yourself.
I mean, what you said about masking your problems, I mean, if you're gonna avoid your problems, I mean, you're eventually gonna make more problems. So it's better to be more direct with them and just take them head on, and then find a solution and keep moving forward, because that's ultimately what's gonna be best for you. So
Yeah, for sure. I think on that note, I guess just to sum up our thoughts about general mental health, Ian basically just went, but for the rest of us, just one action, I guess, if you could just do one action or have one principle that would best help your mental health, I guess what would that be? I mean, of course, in my situation, it's balance. Just balance your stuff.
Yeah.
Balance it's serious, man.
I mean, for me, I feel like it's kind of moving on from things and just letting go of the things you can't control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's probably just telling other friends and not being embarrassed about who you truly are and what you want to say to other people. I think telling adults and friends on your personal experiences is especially important. Just to not mask your feelings, as I said earlier. I think that's very important for you, and it's also something that I'll be using to preserve my mental health in the long term.
For sure. So we've been discussing mental health for a while, specifically, I guess things that are closer to, how you're feeling, and stuff that you can try and work and, control and improve on. But I think another topic that at times I feel is a little underrepresented, even more so than mental health, in popular, AAPI community discussions, is the idea of being neurodivergent, right? So I know Ryan has some thoughts about this. Just what do you think?
Yeah, so when you say neurodivergent, you're assuming kids on the spectrum, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a very, very broad statement on if you're neurodivergent, right? Autism can come in many forms. You could be verbal, you could be nonverbal, but basically it's a variety of different people. But I do think that one common point that these people have, they have different experiences, and but one thing that I think that people stereotype in a way is that Asian Americans they don't pay attention to the neurodivergent people's mental health or their preservation of their well-being. I'm gonna say this again, it's not true. I have a brother He's 3 years younger than me, and he's neurodivergent. He's nonverbal, so we don't. Well, he can talk, but he can't form certain sentences. But I can tell you that we do preserve his mental health, not in a way in terms of schoolwork, but just how he lives on a daily basis. He loves to play with toys and his iPad, but we know that, and I think he knows too, is that especially when he goes on that the entertaining part for too long, he does get upset and kind of gets bored. So what we try to do is we try to fill his day up with interactive activities or education, especially simple like math, like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and sometimes long division. Like he loves to do that. But I think that when you, as you said, underrepresented, like a topic that's underrepresented, neurodivergence, I think that just covers a whole broad spectrum of different people. But I do think that we should all also spread awareness on their mental health and their well-being as well. Yeah.
For sure. I mean, I guess what are some programs or things that you think help with that?
Yeah. So look, it's a pretty broad topic, neurodivergence, right? I know we're talking about huge different types of people, right? Everyone you meet, if they're on the spectrum, they're all different. Like none of them are the same, right? But what I have noticed, especially, is that some program. I wouldn't say this is a program, but I'd say outdoor play and exercise. Like it's a pretty simple thing that kids like to do. Is run around or play with a basketball, shoot a basketball instead of staying inside and sitting down. My brother, he does not like to sit around and just sit there all day and do learning, or especially play with his iPad. Like if we put him in a room with his iPad, he just won't work well, because I think outdoor play helps him. It's the opposite of what we kind of think, but running around and jumping for him is a big it helps him focus on certain things. And I think that not only is he getting his exercise, but I do think he's that is his free time. And I think that if you're keeping kids like my brother in a room, in a classroom, and not giving them the time to express themselves outside, or go outside, or socialize with other people, and go swimming and do all the certain stuff that we do, because you think that kids that are neurodivergent are different. I think that's just extremely harmful to their well-being, because not that they need, but I'm sure that they want outdoor play and socializing with other people as much as we do. So I think a lot of schools do to help kids like my brother is recess time, on just like a lot of recess time, especially when they do something pretty difficult in class, math, certain puzzles or certain things that they have to do that makes them, or helps with their I could say brain power, something that's educational. I think giving them that recess play and giving them a chance to all go outside and just run around and do whatever the heck they want for 30 minutes is probably the most beneficial thing that could happen to them, especially my brother. So yeah, that I'd honestly just say outdoor play and all that.
For sure. And I understand that having someone so close to him who's neurodivergent is definitely a pretty unique experience for Ryan, but just expanding the conversation to the rest of us, not necessarily having to be neurodivergent, but just as an Asian American, how do you think it's treated or received if you act I'll give an example of my own, but if you act, I guess very differently from other people. So I had, I guess, just to concrete the example, throughout most of elementary school, I had terrible anger issues. I tried to attack my kindergarten teacher on the first day by running up to her. I was 2 feet tall, 3 feet tall. She looked she was I don't know, at least 5 feet. I don't know. Everybody looks tall when you're a kindergartner. So I tried to fight her on my first day of kindergartner. I was raging. I was a raging ball of just screaming anger. I had anger issues, and my doctor knew about it. She mentioned it recently too. It's you still have anger issues? I'm like, nah, I'm all right. But Yeah, that went on for a few more years. I think I stopped fighting teachers at second grade. I realized that I couldn't win; they were too strong. So I went on to, I guess, try to cause a lot of trouble in the class, yell, scream, yell at the teacher, do all that, and of course it calmed down with age. But I think that that was something that was a way in which I acted. Very differently. And again, just going back to the idea of Asian stereotyping and model minority, according to the stereotypes, you're not really meant to act differently. You're supposed to be like a robot who just like does their work and is okay with everything. Of course, fighting your teachers is not a good decision for anybody, but I think that whole experience helped me to, I think, be in a position where I was like already off the like model minority mold a little bit. And in one part, as I mentioned in fourth grade before, that sort of situation made me want to adhere to those expectations more. But I think the other part, which I've realized more now, is that it's impossible to be the same as everybody else, and everybody has their own unique struggles.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's almost seen as a weakness because, like, you know, we're meant to be this, like, we have all these things that we're meant to be, like, about, I guess. And, if, like, you know, Max, you said that, you know, we're all meant to be robust, we're meant to be uniform. I mean, you know, everyone's different. So, yeah, I mean, having something wrong with, quote unquote, wrong with you, I mean, I think in an Asian community is, like, bad because we're just meant to be this superior group of people that just are really good at what we do and we don't have any weaknesses. So, yeah.
Yeah, so about being different, look, I'll just speak this out loud, but there's a stereotype that a lot of Asian people love to play the piano, right? And let me be clear, a lot of my Asian friends love to play the piano, okay? They're really, really good at it. They started from a young age and they keep they're practicing every day, playing complicated pieces. So when I was in kindergarten, you know, I started piano, all right? Let me be clear, I did not like it. Like one bit, okay? C, D, E, F, like what is this BS? Why is it not like started A, B, C, okay? But basically, what happened in third grade is I didn't speak out on why I didn't like piano, correct? And I think on third grade, there was an opportunity to go and basically piano class would, this sounds kind of funny now I think about it, but it kind of interferes with football practice. And so a small kid like me joining the football team, like, that was all I wanted to do at the time, right? I love football, I've always wanted to play it, right? And what I realize now is what I sacrificed to go play on that football team was, like, at the time, you know, like, you're losing your Asian status, right? Because you don't, you know, practice piano, right? Like, I know a lot of Asian friends that don't play piano, okay? They're still Asian, okay? And they still, you know, we all have different experiences, right? But at the time, you know, I played football for 1 year, right? I was bad because I was a free safety. I didn't do anything. I was benched, okay? I didn't like it. I quit after the first year because I got bulldozed over by a running back, okay? What I felt at that time was, you know, when my mom was talking about, you know, all my friends still going to piano rehearsals and, oh, like, you played this new Mozart piece, and he played, like, a sonata in E minor or something of that nature. Played that, like, in front of, like, Carnegie Hall and all that, and just because at a young age. And now, at that moment, after I quit the football team, I said, what have I sacrificed? Because I still wanted to keep my Asian identity, like, technically the Asian identity. You know, you play piano, you're good at violin, and I almost got a violin as well because of this stereotype, because a lot of my friends were playing violin, and I was like, you know, like, do I need to, like, I asked my mom, like, do I need to play violin, like, to fit in to that stereotype and to also fit in with my friends? Like, at that time when I quit piano, I felt completely left out because there was this one piano teacher who lives, the kid or the boy, last podcast, his name was Arjun, right? There was a piano teacher that lives right across the street from them, and I knew that when I was in fourth grade, everyone went to her, and the fact that I told her personally that, you know, I didn't want to pursue piano or I didn't want to pursue the instrument anymore because, you know, I was too busy, or the real reason was that at the time I didn't like it at all. That made me feel left out, right? But what I realized is that, playing football and, meeting a new group of friends, like some of the friends there, actually also, quit piano as well just to play football because obviously the piano lessons, like, interfered with the football practices. And I talked with them and they were saying, it sounds kind of corny if you're at a young age, but they also say, be yourself, like, don't try to fit in with this mold, because ultimately not doing piano, like, had a pretty big, it kind of like slapped me in the face at the time because, oh my goodness, like all my friends are doing it, I feel left out. But that's, not what people should focus on, is that what passions do you have and what do you want to follow? And I would love to, I kind of still regret quitting piano, but, at the time, I learned an important lesson about myself, is that, try not to fit into this, mold. And even if you're different, right, just, be yourself and don't let other people, try to get you, left out. You know what I mean?
Just bringing it back to mental health and, being different or being neurodivergent. Just, I guess to close off with one thought from each of y'all about what you think the most important thing overall about, being different or being, having mental health issues in the Asian American community, what you think the most important thing to understand about that, as a non-Asian or as an Asian, or as someone dealing with these issues, what do you think is the most important thing to know?
Yeah, I'll go. So I don't want to make this too long. I also have another personal experience about, bowling. And, when I was younger, everyone liked bowling. Everyone was going bowling. Everyone was going to this specific bowling location. I forgot what it was called, right? My brother, who is on the spectrum, also loved bowling, but he didn't like to bowl like with his hands, and there was like this ramp that you would put the bowling ball on, and you would just get in like a strike every time, and he loved to do that, and I loved doing it with him. But what I felt at the time was, oh shoot, everyone's going to this specific bowling location, and I'm going with my brother. I feel left out. Should I join them? Like, what will they think of me going to this bowling location? It's super silly. But overall, like, the overarching message there is, if you're different and like, don't ever try to fit in with the mold. Always follow, your passions and who you are, and especially for your mental health as well. If you're doing something differently, like compared to like other Asian Americans or your friends, like, don't try to pursue that, the same thing unless if you really enjoy it or unless if it's really beneficial to you. And then going back to mental health, I think, always reaching out and always, finding guidance within, counselors, families, friends, anyone, especially your parents, not masking your feelings or not going through the simulation like in Retro Bowl, as like Max brought up earlier in the podcast, but not masking your feelings and, getting help is especially just so beneficial. I think this is awesome, guys.
I mean, to answer Max's question, I think, if you're different, you should really embrace it because that's who you are as a person. But obviously, you shouldn't shy away from it. Don't, keep it in. Be transparent with people because, if you're gonna hide it from people, I think it's just gonna set you back even further. Max, what you were saying about like faking something that you're passionate for and then obviously like not liking it. Again, that's basically trying to fit in, the expectation of fitting in like over your, I guess, like life morals is like a bad factor because you're just deteriorating your mental health. So yeah.
Going back to your kind of few words that sums up this conversation is that everyone's different in some way. Whether it's through neurodivergence or something like that, everyone's different, and it's important to accept that you're never going to be like everyone else. You're never going to fit into either that model minority kind of mold. You're never going to fit into that perfectly, and it's important to accept that.
For sure. And I think with that model minority mold idea, we're not robots with mental health issues. Nothing comes easy. Getting good grades in all your hard classes that you poorly chose to pick is, everything comes with a cost, and don't sacrifice yourself for things that you don't truly care about.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to technically the third OCA podcast, but it's like the second actual one because the first one was like not real. But all right. Thank y'all. Have a nice day.